Most traders don't fail because they're bad at trading. They fail because they misread the most painful phase of their journey and quit right when it starts to matter. There's a moment every trader hits that feels worse than being a beginner. You're no longer clueless. You understand setups. You know risk management. You've had green days, maybe even green weeks, and yet, nothing feels stable. One good run is followed by a sharp drawdown. Confidence builds, then collapses. Losses hurt more now, because you know they shouldn't be happening like this. This is the phase where trading starts to feel personal. You stop saying, "I'm learning," and start thinking, "I should be better than this by now." You replay trades in your head. You question yourself more than the market. Some days you feel close, like it's finally about to click. Other days, you wonder if you've been lying to yourself the whole time. This is usually when the quiet thoughts show up. Maybe I don't have the mindset. Maybe I missed my chance. Maybe everyone else gets it except me. Most traders interpret this phase as proof they're not cut out for trading. They think it's a dead end. In reality, it's a checkpoint, a transition point almost every serious trader passes through, whether they know it or not. And here's the hard truth. If you don't understand what this phase really is, it will break you. But if you do, it can save you years of pain. Part 2. Why this phase exists and why it hurts so much. This phase exists for a reason, and it has nothing to do with luck, intelligence, or effort. It shows up when your technical understanding starts to improve faster than your emotional control. In the beginning, ignorance protects you. Losses don't hit as hard because you expect them. You're experimenting, you're learning. There's no pressure to perform. But once you've been around the markets for a while, that protection disappears. You know what a good setup looks like now. You understand risk on paper. You've seen trades work. And that changes everything. Losses don't just cost money anymore. They cost confidence. Each losing trade feels like evidence, not randomness. Evidence that something is wrong with you. That's where the pain starts. Your skill level has moved forward, but your psychology hasn't caught up yet. You're no longer a beginner, but you're not consistent either. You're stuck in the middle. And the middle is the most dangerous place a trader can be, because expectations rise faster than results. This is when identity gets involved. Earlier, you were someone learning to trade. Now, you're a trader who should know better. That subtle shift creates pressure. You start measuring yourself by outcomes instead of execution. A losing day doesn't feel like part of the process anymore. It feels like a personal failure. What makes this phase especially brutal is inconsistency. If you were losing all the time, at least it would make sense. But you're not. You have weeks where everything flows. Your entries feel clean. Your exits make sense. You think, "This is it, I've figured it out." And then the next week, the same approach falls apart. Intermittent success is psychologically toxic. It keeps you emotionally invested while denying you stability. It gives you just enough hope to stay attached, but not enough consistency to relax. This is why this phase hurts more than being a beginner. You've tasted progress, but you can't hold on to it. So your brain does what it always does under stress. It tries to regain control. You start adjusting things that don't need adjusting. You tweak entries after a loss. You change position size after a drawdown. You add filters after a losing streak, and remove them after a winning one. None of these changes are dramatic enough to feel like panic, but collectively, they destroy consistency. This is the overcorrection spiral. You're not acting randomly. You're reacting emotionally while telling yourself you're being logical. You convince yourself you're refining your strategy, when in reality, you're just trying to escape discomfort. Each change feels justified in isolation. Together, they ensure nothing ever stabilizes. At the same time, patience starts to disappear. When you were new, waiting felt normal. Now, waiting feels like wasted time. You've seen results before, so doing nothing feels wrong. You start taking marginal setups. You trade out of boredom. You trade to feel productive. You trade to feel back in control. And slowly, trading stops being about execution and starts becoming emotional labor. You wake up already tense. You watch every tick. You analyze trades that aren't even yours. Losses linger longer than they should. Wins don't satisfy you for more than a few minutes. The market feels heavier now, like it's pressing. back. This is the point where most traders quit, not because they've failed, but because they're exhausted, mentally drained, tired of second-guessing themselves, tired of feeling close, but never quite there. They don't walk away calmly. They walk away frustrated, convinced the market is rigged, or that they simply don't have what it takes. What they don't realize is that this phase isn't a sign they're doing something wrong. It's a sign they've progressed far enough for the real work to begin. This is the phase where trading stops being about learning setups and starts being about learning yourself, where emotional weaknesses you could ignore earlier are now exposed daily, where discipline matters more than intelligence, where restraint matters more than effort. Most traders never understand this. They interpret pain as a warning sign, not a transition. So they reset the cycle. New strategy, new market, new hope. And eventually the same phase shows up again because the problem was never technical. The painful phase doesn't exist to punish you. It exists to force a shift. And until that shift happens, trading will continue to feel harder than it should. Part 3. The shift that separates survivors from quitters. The traders who survive this phase don't do anything dramatic. They don't find a secret strategy or suddenly become fearless. What changes is how they interpret what's happening to them. They realize this phase isn't something to escape. It's something to move through, deliberately and patiently. The first shift is subtle, but decisive. They stop asking whether they're profitable and start asking whether they're behaving correctly. This sounds simple, almost too simple, but it changes everything. When results are inconsistent, focusing on money only amplifies emotional swings. One good day creates relief. One bad day creates doubt. Neither state helps you trade well. So survivors redefine what a good trading day means. A good day isn't green. A good day is one where they waited for their setup, sized correctly, followed their rules, and accepted the outcome without interference. A red day, executed properly, becomes a success. A green day achieved through impulsive decisions becomes a warning. This shift removes the emotional charge from individual trades and puts it where it belongs, on behavior. The second shift is reduction. Fewer trades, fewer opinions, fewer inputs. During the painful phase, most traders feel the urge to do more. More charts, more indicators, more explanations. Survivors do the opposite. They slow everything down. They trade less often, not because they're scared, but because they're selective. They stop trying to prove something to themselves every day. They also reduce external noise. They stop reading market commentary during trading hours. They stop checking what other traders think, not because those opinions are useless, but because they interfere with execution. When you're already emotionally stretched, outside opinions don't inform you. They confuse you. Survivors understand that clarity doesn't come from adding information. It comes from removing distractions. The third shift is acceptance of the plateau. This is one of the hardest parts for traders to swallow. Progress stops feeling exciting. There are no big breakthroughs, no sudden jumps in equity. Improvement becomes quiet and slow. Many traders mistake this for stagnation. It isn't. It's stabilization. Plateaus are uncomfortable because they don't reward effort with visible progress. You can follow your rules perfectly for weeks and see very little change in results. This is where impatience creeps in. Survivors recognize that this flat period is where consistency is built. It's where habits form. It's where emotional reactions soften. The equity curve may not move much, but something else does. Your relationship with uncertainty changes. As these shifts take hold, something unexpected happens emotionally. The intensity fades. Not the focus, but the drama. You stop reacting to every tick. Losses don't feel urgent. Wins don't feel intoxicating. Trading starts to feel quieter, more neutral, and that neutrality is a sign of progress, even if it doesn't feel impressive. This is also when traders start to notice a change in their behavior outside of trades. They're no longer rushing to the screen. They're more comfortable doing nothing. Waiting doesn't feel like punishment anymore. It feels like discipline. They no longer feel the need to explain every outcome. They review, note patterns, and move on. Importantly, survivors stop trying to eliminate pain. They accept that discomfort is part of the process. Losses still happen. Drawdowns still occur. But they're no longer interpreted as threats. They're treated as data points within a larger process. This is where emotional resilience begins to form. At this stage, many traders realize something confronting. The pain they were trying to escape was actually pointing them in the right direction. It was exposing habits that needed to change. Overtrading, overthinking, needing constant feedback, chasing reassurance. Once those behaviors are addressed, the pain naturally reduces. Not because the market becomes easier, but because the trader becomes more stable. This is the dividing line. Most traders never make these shifts. They stay trapped in reaction mode, constantly adjusting, constantly searching, constantly trying to feel in control. Survivors accept that control in trading is limited. They focus on the few things they can control and let everything else play out. This is why the painful phase feels so different for those who get through it. It doesn't end with a dramatic win or a sudden surge in profits. It ends quietly. One day, you realize you're not as emotionally affected as you used to be. You're not forcing trades. You're not second-guessing every decision. You're simply executing, reviewing, and waiting. That's when the phase starts to loosen its grip. Not because the market changed, but because you did. Part 4. The identity that carries you forward. By the time traders move through this phase, something fundamental has changed. Not their strategy, not the market, but how they see themselves. They stop identifying as someone chasing profits or trying to prove they're good enough. They start seeing themselves as someone who executes a process day after day without needing constant confirmation. This identity shift is what keeps them in the game. When losses happen, they no longer feel like personal attacks. A losing day doesn't mean something is wrong. It means the process played out the way probability allows it to. Wins don't inflate the ego either. They're welcomed, noted, and then set aside. Tomorrow's execution matters more than today's result. Looking back, the painful phase doesn't feel dramatic anymore. It feels quiet, uneventful, almost boring. What once felt like constant tension now feels like routine. The confusion, the frustration, the emotional swings fade into the background because they're no longer being fed. The trader isn't fighting the experience anymore. They've learned to sit inside it. This is also when trading starts to take up less mental space. There's no need to obsess over charts outside of planned hours. No urge to revenge trade after a loss. No pressure to be active, just to feel productive. Trading becomes part of life, not something that consumes it. Every trader reaches a fork in the road here. Some decide the slow pace isn't for them. They want excitement, certainty, constant stimulation. So they walk away or reset the cycle, starting over with a new approach, only to meet the same phase again later. Others accept the reality of the work. They slow down. They simplify. They stay. The market doesn't reward intensity. It doesn't care how badly you want it or how hard you're trying. It rewards patience, restraint, and consistency over time. Survival comes first. Growth follows quietly after. If you're in the painful phase right now, nothing is broken. You haven't failed. You're being asked to change how you show up, not to quit. And if you understand that, this phase doesn't have to last as long as it does for most traders. Keep following the channel as we share more insights, trading stories, and trading motivation tips in future videos.